Welcome to Altenburg, Germany, and a brand new season on the Carell World Cup Bobsleigh Series. This is race number 1, the two-man competition. As for the Carell World Cup standings from a season ago, as was just mentioned, Christoph Langen was the kingpin as he bettered Pierre Lueders, the champion from the year before. Well, there's already been some exciting activity here in the first heat of competition. This was the sled from Holland. Holland sled number 1 tipping over out of curve number 9. Both the driver and brakemen were all right. Not so all right is Christoph Langen, the World Cup champion, suffering from a leg injury. He injured it over the summer, limping here at the start. He's in 6th place, entering heat number 2. It's Pierre Lueders on top of the standings, ahead of a pair of Germans, Benisch and Dassdaller, making out the top 3 as we get set for the second and final heat of competition. This is USA sled number 1. The driver, Jim Herbrich, his brakeman, Garrett Hines. Normally, USA sled number 1 is driven by Brian Scheimer. Scheimer crashed during training, and he is out for the competition. We will be watching the split times throughout this and all of the sleds as they make their way down the track. It's a good indication to see how they are faring against the sleds that went down before them. The replay of a clean load, and it was an impressive start for Herbrich and Hines, and they're still ahead of the pace, 0.03 of a second in front of some of the earlier sleds. A tap there, as we'll see so many of the sleds perform during the course of their runs. 111 kilometers per hour, the speed very important as they make their way down the track, trying to tap as few spots on this track as possible. Herbrich, a 3-time Olympian, a driver at the 1994 Olympics. However, he failed to crack the top 15 in the final placings. Around the finish curve, trying to beat a time of 57.13. They do so with a sizzling heat of 56.96 combined time, 153.69 for USA sled number 2 and Jim Herbrich. They are the leaders. Elation down in the USA camp. Still 4 more sleds to come. But this has got to be the best run ever for Jim Herbrich in his long 10-year career.
That was the most nervous I think I've been before a second run. Just because wanted to hold the place, knew we were going well, had the right equipment, had a good start and a good run, we could move up.
As is so often the case here in the eastern part of Germany, cloudy, overcast skies on top of this beautiful view of the track. The air temperature sitting at about -1, the track temperature about -3, and there is a look at the 17 curves of the longest track currently on the World Cup bobsled circuit. They call it a dangerous track. Some of the spots to keep in mind. Curve 9, so important as they approach 9 that they exit 9 low. If not, there will certainly be a tap. Then the long straightaway as the speeds pick up. Speeds now in excess of 100 kilometers per hour. The big Kreisel turn. It's so important that these drivers actually drive as little as possible, trying to keep the runners headed straight down this winding track. They say it's he who drives the least that makes out the best. The Carell World Cup Bobsleigh Series is brought to you by Carell, the official sponsor of World Cup Bobsleigh.
If you want full office suite power at a word processor
run, walking up the track with head coach Hans Hildebrand, but now on course, this is Germany sled number 2, the driver Sepp Dassdaller, his brakeman Thomas Platzer. Their start time 5.24, the best so far in the heat. And we take another look at what they did at the start and what any team strives for in that first 50 meters, the powerful driving legs, heads pointed forward, the brakeman trying to stay out of the sled as long as possible for as much precision and momentum as possible. 32.49, the split time they are trying to gun for. And a slight tap and a 32.61. They find themselves more than 1/10 of a second off the pace, currently in 3rd place. 110 kilometers per hour for Sepp Dassdaller. And that number on the front of the sleds represents their World Cup ranking from last season. Jim Herbrick of the USA at the finish line. He's in first place, but crossing the finish right now, Germany sled number 2, and they don't do it. They fall in back of Herbrick into second place as well, 1:53.83, so major things developing, shocking developments for Jim Herbrick, who doesn't realize he has already earned a World Cup medal, his first ever. He's down at the finish area, but the finish time for Germany number 2, 1:54.15. Now we're set for another German sled. They were in second place after the first heat. Germany number 3, Matthias Benisch, the driver, Lars Bolta, the brakeman. Unbelievable story unfolding here as the Americans have won a medal, the Canadians still to come, and a disappointing start time there, 7/100ths off the pace for Matthias Benisch and Germany number 3. We see Benisch perhaps a little bit of a stumble as he got in the sled. A clean load, however, by Lars. And now we'll see if they make up some split time on the way down. They have about 1/10 of a second or more to play with. That's their advantage over Herbrick after the first heat, but a bump there and a bit of a skid. Up and down around the Kreisel, 110 kilometers per hour. Benisch, a young German pilot, but one of so many terrific pilots from the Deutschland program. 48.42, and he finds himself falling further back. Jim Herbrick of the United States could stay out in front. Around the finish curve, trying to beat a 56.96, doesn't do it. 34/100ths off the pace, and 1/10 of a second for the two-heat combined deficiency. Jim Herbrick, again, has maintained the lead. High fives amongst the Americans as they have the lead, and Germany number 3 with a total time of 1:53.83. Again, a look at that start. And we can't see from this angle whether, in fact, Benisch did slip on the load, but we do know out of curve 9, he was a bit high, and this tap may have cost him the race. He falls into second place, however, and will win at least a bronze medal here in Altenburg as you see his final time. Pierre Lueders of Canada, the final sled. He was the 1995 World Cup champion, and the Canadians are trying to regain the title.
We've got some room to improve on last year, although the Germans did take top honors in the overall World Cup. That's our goal this year, is to claim those titles back again and repeat that success at the World Championships.
His brakeman, Dave McEachran. Already Pierre Lueders has won 20 World Cup medals. He's still just 24 years old. He's the silver medalist at last year's World Championships on his home track in Calgary. His start time, 3/100ths off the pace. Already an early bump. So Pierre Lueders, who won last year's opening World Cup race, is trying to repeat 1 year later here in Altenburg, Germany. He loads into the sled, McEachran right behind them. 22.80, the split time. He's now 1/10 of a second back. Keep in mind his lead over Jim Herbrick, the clubhouse leader, was some 3/10 of a second, but another bump, a double bump for Pierre Lueders, and there's Jim Herbrick. He's in first place down at the bottom. He is closely watching the clock and the monitor to see if he will win a gold or a silver. Pierre Lueders now with just 2 more splits to indicate how he is faring. He's still in back of the pack, but keep in mind he still has a bit of a comfort zone ahead of Jim Herbrick. Around the finish line, the time, not quite enough in the second heat, but as you can see by the 1 on the lower left, by 8/100ths of a second, Pierre Lueders has won the gold medal. Jim Herbrick winces in pain as he drops down to the silver. Pierre Lueders and Dave McEachran of Canada, gold here in Altenburg.
Hey, Pierre, are you happy? You smile to the camera. Left hand.
Yeah. So a check at the final results here in the two-man competition. Lueders takes it with a time of 1:53.61. American Jim Herbrick, USA won in second. The Germans finished 3rd and 4th. A big win for Pierre Lueders.
Oh, it's great. You know, it'll bite you if you're not ready for it, and it sure bit us pretty good on that one. But, you know, the first run was really good. It was nice and smooth, and I was looking for that run on the second one, but I just got a little bit out of rhythm early on, and, you know, I just basically tried to let the sled run a little more, and the hell with it, I guess.
For Canada, it was the best of times and the worst of times. This is Canada sled number 3 in the second heat. Gray Kittle, his brakeman Ian Denny, The wicked crash out of curve 9 at high speeds. The sled would slide all the way to the finish. However, as seems to be fortunately always the case, both the driver Kittel and his brakeman Ian Danny were okay. They would walk away from this crash. And the worst that Kittel would suffer was a lost glove.
If you want